Well, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Bob Bianchi. I'll be here from 12 to 3. And as you guys know, I love this network, gavel to gavel coverage, not only because it's true crime and real lawyers breaking down real cases, but real interviews with real lawyers and real celebrity lawyers sometimes. So it's my honor and privilege to bring to you Jose Baez. You may know him. It may sound familiar to you because he was the person that has handled very high-profile cases like Jodi Arias and Aaron Hernandez. Welcome to the show, Jose.
Thank you for having me, but it's Casey Anthony, not Jodi Arias.
Casey Anthony, my bad, my bad. Hey, listen, Jose has a book out, and I'm going to put it up here, and you guys know I call it as I see it, unnecessary roughness. I got to be honest with you. You see a shot of it there. I'm not a big fan of reading crime books, and I am not a big fan of looking at crime shows because I do it for a living and have for 30 years and have an 85-year-old father who's been talking to me about trial law, so it's overwhelming. But when I had to do this interview with Jose, I had to read the book, and I got to be honest with you, it is one of the best crime books I have ever read, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not just because of the fascinating Aaron Hernandez case. It's about the real life of a real trial lawyer and a lot of stuff about police and prosecutorial misconduct that comes out in this book. So, Jose, you did a great job. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So listen, let's start off. Give me, I'm curious, what is your background? What led you to the law and especially to be the criminal defense lawyer that you are?
Well, it's funny. I went to college and got a criminology degree, and I was thinking of being a prosecutor. So the first summer, I went to have my internship, and I worked one day at the prosecutor's office, and there was just something that didn't fit or sit right with me. I didn't like it. So I went across the street to the public defender's office. I fell in love with it, and I never went back. And the real reason is I loved having clients. I loved helping people, and I liked fighting for the underdog. I mean, that's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that moved me. As a prosecutor, I mean, you know, Lord knows we need them. It just wasn't for me.
Right. Well, that's interesting because as mostly a prosecutor in my career, both as an assistant prosecutor and the chief county prosecutor, I felt that prosecutors have the ability to do a tremendous amount of good in terms of rehabilitation as well as cleaning up some things that are wrong in the criminal justice system. And when people ask, how could you now be a defense lawyer, there's a different level of intimacy with a client that I think you bring out in this book. And we had it up there. I saw a quick shot, but if we could take a picture that comes from your book, Unnecessary Roughness, of Aaron and the infant child, if we could just get that up there, if our producers will show. You put this in the back of your book with a number of other photographs, and you seem to have a very strong connection. There it is right there, Jose. Is that the man you know, as opposed to what the media kind of portrayed as this vicious gang banging, hanging out killer?
Absolutely, 100%. In fact, I would say that was Aaron 99.9% of the time. Everyone who knew him absolutely loved him. And what's funny is they say, well, you represented him as a lawyer, so he was nice to you and things like that. That's not only it. You know, I judged my opinions by one. When I met him, he was going through a very traumatic time. Two, I got to know his family and the people closest to him very well. And three, you know, as a lawyer, you have access to everything. All of his text messages, his computer records, his iPad, all of these things. So you go through them, and you see the texts and emails going back and forth. And Aaron was the type of guy, when someone came to him for help, he never said no. And when Shayana would say he's the type of guy that gave you the shirt off his back, it was true.
And Shayana's his wife.
Correct, his fiance.
His fiance at the time.
Yes.
Right. So I see that coming through in the book a lot. In other words, you have an intimate window because you know everything, both from the prosecutor's file, but something when I was a prosecutor that I didn't have that you do as a criminal defense lawyer is you have the client. You have the version of the client's story. You can see the client's background. And most times, would you agree with me, Jose, sometimes people do bad things. And even those people have a lot of value in their lives. And many times it's just instantaneous.
Yes, I think I've quoted before Roman Israel, the movie. where he says we're all greater than our worst deed, and it's true. I do this for two reasons. One, because not everyone is guilty. You'd be surprised how many clients we end up representing that are either overcharged or flat out didn't do the crime. And then the second thing is I believe in second chances. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it weren't for second chances, right. Or maybe third or fourth. But we're all human, and we all deserve some type of sympathy. And I think you judge a society by how they treat individuals who falter.
I see, I mean, no disrespect to any of our viewers here. I'm a very faith-based person. I see a lot of that theme coming through in this book. And if I could jump to the end, you represented Aaron in the second trial, of which he was acquitted, but he had already been convicted. And you were in the process of appealing that. He was kind of on a high based on what I see in this book. You spoke to him last, and he was very upbeat. And when he was found, he had John 3:16 on his forehead, I believe it was, and it was something that was very powerful to him. Where did faith come in with him as a result of everything he went through?
Well, I think he first got exposed to faith in college. He was friends with Tim Tebow, and Urban Meyer held Bible study in his office and at his home with Aaron. And it wasn't something that he was overly religious, but that started it. And I think, when when he got incarcerated, many people, when they're in their darkest moments, reach to their faith to help them through the tough times. And they talk about all his tattoos, but what most people don't know is, I would say, 80% of the tattoos on Aaron's body were religious-based.
How about that? How about that? And when he wrote some, I guess, goodbye notes, for lack of a better expression, both to his daughter as well as to his fiance, there were references, especially to the daughter, with respect to faith and believing in God. I mean, so this was who he was as a person, as you saw it. It wasn't a punchline. It's who he was.
Correct. And, you're exposed to that. And, this case is it's a tragedy all the way around. And for every person involved, I feel extremely, I have sympathy for them, and I feel terrible about all of this, because these are certain things that I guess you can't say they could have all been avoided, because you just don't know. But it's just a sad, sad tragedy.
Well, listen, I could sit here and talk to you about this case, and based upon the way you wrote this book forever, unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes left. So the bottom line is, folks, and you would agree, Jose, in here you're critical of the police investigation, you're critical of the media attention and how that changes the trajectory of a case, and you're critical of some of the tactics that they used in order to secure the conviction, yet you were respectful of the prosecutor. Tell us about all that.
Well, it's funny, because I break down the case that I represented him and how I broke it down and how we ultimately won the case. So readers get to see basically organically how the defense of a case comes to form. So yes, there were some outrageous things being done by the Boston Police Department. I've never seen, in cases I've read or heard, where dead bodies are towed inside a car and taken to a forensic bay. That to me probably was the most egregious of them all.
Okay, we got to get real quick to two topics. You can handle them in any order you want, or a combination thereof. The CTE, or analysis of the brain, that was done afterwards, and what was determined. And Linda Kenney Bodden, I have to bring my girl, my Jersey girl, into this. And I know she's got a forensic background. How did she help you with all that?
Well, I call Linda Mom. She's my trial mom, and we go way back for many years. Linda is a fascinating lawyer, and once I got this case, I knew I wanted to bring her in and work with her again. And she really knows how to break a case down through its forensics, and that's something she taught me. So my strength is in forensics, but I always like having her around, because I know I can give her something and not even worry about it, that it would be taken care of. And I can't tell you as lead counsel how important that really is in a big case.
Yeah, you put some amazing team together, and certainly I know Linda to be the real deal. You could tell the real deal trial lawyers from those who aren't. The producer's kind enough to give me 3 minutes, and thank you for staying for 3 more minutes. I got to talk to you about this character, Bradley. You respected the prosecutor. You kind of feared him a little bit. I love this psychology because you actually liked him and respected him. And yet he uses this witness, Bradley. Talk about him, the hidden text, the stuff he found out. And I love the story of the street sweeper.
Well, you know, it's funny. Where do you want me to start?
Let's do Bradley because he was the prosecutor's case. He told you that. That's my case.
Yes. And what's funny is, as it relates to Alexander Bradley, is this case started with the police seeing Aaron on the news over Odin Lloyd, and then began to build their case around Aaron. Not, you know, usually you get the evidence leads you to a suspect, not the other way around.
Right.
And what Alexander Bradley did for them is he packaged it all up, and he handed it to them. And you know what? He was facing murder charges. Bradley was facing murder charges. So this was the deal of a lifetime, as we called it.
He was no choir boy either. I mean,
no. He was moving 30 pounds of weed a month.
Right.
He had been dealing drugs for over a decade, and people feared him in Bristol. And you know, I was in Hartford, Connecticut, about 6 months ago. I'm talking to some folks there, just on the street, outside of a Dunkin' Donuts, believe it or not. They all knew Alexander Bradley.
Right.
He's legend in the streets of Hartford. So it's one of those situations that everyone feared Bradley. He was a convenient friend for Aaron because he supplied him with weed and he protected Aaron. And that's where their friendship started. And to build your entire case around a snitch is a pretty dangerous thing.
Yeah, and there was evidence that they never thought would come out via text messages and lies to the grand jury. You know, I always say this even as a prosecutor when I train my APs. You sleep with dogs, you catch fleas. And I, like you, even as a prosecutor, you may find this odd, we're not happy about putting witnesses like this on because they're getting the deal of a lifetime. And you bring that out very well in your book.
Yes, you know, he had a text message that he wrote to his lawyer, and he did it. He deleted it, thinking it would never see the light of day in a courtroom. But once he turned over his phone and signed a waiver of confidentiality for that phone, it was fair game for the defense. We found it; they didn't, because really, it's all about doing your homework, checking every piece of paper, leaving no stone unturned. And this happens a lot in trials. If you're sloppy in low-profile trials, you're going to be sloppy in high-profile trials. In Casey Anthony's case, we blew the prosecution up with some computer searches where they thought Casey had searched the computer for 84 times for chloroform, and we showed them that that was false. And in this case, we found a text message buried in a mountain of evidence. And if you want to be a good lawyer, you've got to do your homework, and you've got to check every single piece of paper.
Well, Jose Baez, here's the book, Unnecessary Roughness. If you want to be a good trial lawyer, you got to read this book because it really tells you the good of what defense attorneys do. It's a fascinating read. It's a spiritual read. I recommend it. Jose, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.